Maria, that was awesome. You enhanced my sense of vitality. And that's what we're going to talk about over the next 15 minutes or so. And first of all, it's an incredible honor to be here. And I look forward to enhancing everybody's vitality who's in the room, all right? What I'd like to start with, though, is the title here. And I hope everybody here can live in the vitality zone, or what I say, live a fabulous life before you flatline. Now, how do we get there? And who am I? I'm really not a vitality expert. This is who I am professionally. I'm an orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine specialist, and also a medical researcher. But I'm also a father, a husband, a brother, and a believer. But before we begin on the vitality journey, I'd like to tell you a little story. And does anybody know where this is? And whoever heard my talk yesterday has to be quiet for a second. Does anybody have any ideas? Well, this is a phenomenal beach called the 4 Mile Beach in Australia, in the northeastern part of Australia, and that's the Coral Sea, and it looks out towards the Great Barrier Reef. And last year, I was incredibly blessed to go to Australia with my family on a vacation, and we were in and around Australia for about 10 days before we came here. So I was relaxed, and each day I would go up and down this beach, running for about 1.5 miles down the beach, down towards where you see there's a little boat out there. I'd swim out towards the boat, swim back, and then come running back. And the day before we left, I was running back up that beach, and I was just wearing my swim trunks, and I've had spine surgery and knee surgery, and I was doing a little systems check as I increased my pace. Do my knees hurt? Does my back hurt? I was running on the sand, and it was like firm but not hard. It was hot but not, it was warm but not hot that day. And I ran about as fast as I've run in probably 30 or 40 years. And I heard that Chariots of Fire theme song in my head. And as I finished, I stopped right where that palm tree is. I looked back out and I paused. Because we all take a pause, or we don't want to remember the bad times, but sometimes we don't really pause and try to understand the good times. And so this was clearly a good time. And this was when I came up with an idea of trying to come up with a vitality score of like, how awesome do I feel right now? And I wanted to put that on a scale of 0 to 100. And I gave myself a 98. And this is actually a little app that I'm in the process of developing with my daughter to daily record your sense of vitality. And it was really that day that I became my newest little blurb. I call myself a vitality explorer. I'm not a guru, I'm an explorer. And for the rest of the time that we have, I'm going to share with you some tips, and what I call vetted vitality tips on how to be a vitality explorer. And there's really only 2 things to remember, okay? The 2 things to remember about vitality that are, I think, important is that vitality is not an accident. You don't just stumble into being a superhero or super vital. Vitality is a skill, and vitality is a skill that you can learn. And it is also, interestingly, a gift only you can give yourself, okay? So in that context, that's the first one. And the second one is there's 4 pillars to vitality. And the 4 pillars are physical, mental, social, and spiritual. And in the meat of the talk here, we'll give you specific actionable items on how to enhance each of those. But before I do that, I need to tell you a little story of how I probably got here, all right? Without this story, I wouldn't be here. And so when I was a little boy, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I was a total mama's boy. I would follow my mom around like a lost Labrador retriever. She would teach me verses, and for every verse that I memorized, I got a dime. Okay, maybe that's probably worth $1 now. But one of the favorites that I remember is, cast your cares upon him, for he careth for you. And, I have 2 brothers, and one night my dad was out of town on a business trip. My 2 brothers were downstairs watching TV, and unfortunately, my mom had a terrible headache. And of course, she went up to lay down, but I followed her upstairs, laid down next to her, and I remember her arm being right next to my forearm, and she had goosebumps on her forearm. And I was like, oh, well, what are those? And she said, well, I get those when I think of Jesus. And I said, wow, you get those when you think of God? She said, yes, I do. And unfortunately, very shortly thereafter, she had a severe called tonic-clonic seizure, which is like anything you think of when you think of a seizure in a movie. And this had happened before. My brothers and I knew the drill. We called an ambulance. The ambulance came, they took my mom away, and about 5 months later, unfortunately, she died after multiple operations for a brain tumor. But that is one of the reasons I'm standing in front of you today, okay? Because when I was 9, I knew we were all going to flatline. Don't worry, this isn't a depressing talk about dying or whatever, but you need to think about that a little bit. Just a little bit every day if you're going to be vital. And so there's things that have come to me in the last year or so as I've explored vitality. And one of them is thinking with time in mind changes every thought. So I thought of that story I just told you is horrible forever, and I never shared it publicly until yesterday. But it's really important. The second one is vitality is not the absence of adversity. Vitality really is the ability to thrive in the presence of adversity. So what we're going to do is now talk about some of the zones in which all of us may be living. And these are sort of arbitrary distinctions that I've come up with, but I think, again, we're all going to flatline, we're all going to die. We'd all like to live in that healthier vital zone, but a lot of us are unfortunately living in the surviving, sliding, or burnout zone. Just trying to pay the mortgage, just trying to get through the day, just trying to deal with that boss who is extraordinarily challenging, dealing with a health issue that won't go away. And we fall into the burnout zone. And I see lots of patients who are in the burnout zone. I've been in the burnout zone. I don't want to be there. I want to be here. And actually, this is where I want to be, because this is my daughter and I on that same beach. And this is a little bit of an optical illusion because I really can't jump that high. But it does look pretty good. It's awesome. It brings a smile to my face every time I look at that. So I keep that in my phone. But we want to be there. And as a physician, I decided I should try and discover the biometric marker for vitality. I'm going to be super famous and go to Stockholm and pick up my Nobel Prize, right? So over the last year or so, I took a deep dive into biologic ideas about how to measure your sense of vitality. So where does best start but your DNA? So I got my DNA sequenced. I got something called my microbiome sequence, which is all your gut bacteria. I looked far and wide into my social and professional circles and asked anybody and everybody I could think of, what could I do to myself, because I don't have to ask anybody's permission, to figure out if I'm vital or not. So one of the things that people kept coming up with is measure your cortisol level. And your cortisol is a stress hormone. So I did all of that and much, much more. I got a little anemic drawing my own blood. And I'm going to boil it down to you for you. We are emerging, and some of the artificial intelligence and other things we've heard about will eventually, hopefully, pull these all together, but we're not quite there yet. But I am going to give you one tip. And the one tip that I think is important is that you should get your vitamin D level checked. Okay, now why is that important? Well, I found out a little bit that I have trouble processing vitamin D via sequencing my DNA. But I also found out that vitamin D is connected not just to your bone health, it's connected to your immune system, it's connected to ligaments, tendons, tons of things. And anybody who has any Asian or African American heritage are at higher risk for getting vitamin D deficiency. So it's a simple thing to do. The other thing is it's actionable. So do you really want to find out you're going to have Alzheimer's when you're 75 and you don't have anything to do about it? Or do you want to find something when you're relatively young or even a little older that you can fix? So check your vitamin D. Now, in the time that we have remaining, I'm going to say, how can we enhance our vitality? So then I went up and I talked to some super smart people in Seattle, Institute for Systems Biology. These guys are smashing up math and science, and they came up with what I do only affects 10% of what people, so healthcare is not the answer. Your genetics probably is up to 30%, but who wants to guess what the other 60% is? What was it? Food? Lifestyle, keep going. Vitamin D probably. Yeah. See, people are paying attention. Oh, I like it. I like it. So your behavior and your environment. So if you, everybody was all right, okay, but you can say, listen to your doctor, you got to fix me. I get that every single day. Fix me. Well, or your genetics. It's my genes. I can't fix it. Well, that's probably up to 40%. The rest you are in control of. So let's learn some specific things. How can we do that in the physical realm? So physical vitality is what I'm an expert about. I'm an orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine specialist, and these are the three that I came up with. Flexibility, strength, and endurance. But guess what? I was wrong. Those are not as important as these other three: sleep, diet, and your weight. And the most important is your sleep. So if you want to think of sleep as a weapon, and this is obviously Matt Damon playing Jason Bourne, and if you watch the movies, it's not really in the movies, but in the books written by Robert Ludlum, is a line that sleep is a weapon, a vital truth, vital for survival. And that is really deeply rooted in the medical literature now. If you want to improve your sense of health or well-being, you need to sleep better. So if there's one thing for your physical vitality you can do, it's to get better sleep. How about mental? Okay, now I am not a mental vitality expert, but there's lots of books, blogs, podcasts about this. You should be positive, you should be passionate, you should be patient, you should be tough or resilient, and you should also seek tranquility, right? But there's one that's missing up there. You should be present, okay? And actually, this is one, again, you can do for yourself, and it costs nothing. So I have a challenge for everybody, including myself this week. So The Precious Presence, a great book. You could read it in maybe half an hour. But one other thing you can try to do is live in the now. And here's my suggestion. Extraordinarily hard, but try it. Just take 10 minutes where you don't think of the past, you don't think of the future, you don't touch your phone, you don't touch a computer, and if you're having a conversation with somebody, you look them in the eye. Try 10 minutes. It's almost impossible, but it'll enhance your vitality. Now, this is one where I thought I had it nailed, but I really didn't. And the third pillar, or your social vitality, is crucial, and you talked about it, but your connectedness to other people will enhance your vitality. So my tagline here is prioritize meaningful social connections. But in order to have a meaningful social connection, you have to do something that most of us don't want to do, which I actually just did with you. You have to practice scary sharing. You have to say to somebody something that's going to make you vulnerable. Thank you for listening to my vulnerability. We are all now more connected on some level because I shared something with you. Now, you have to share something with somebody you trust, and then they can't violate your trust. But if you do that, then they may feel comfortable sharing with you something that they wanted to talk about. So you may actually be helping somebody else, and that leads me to my final one, which is spiritual vitality. And I boil that down to belief in something bigger than yourself. Thank you, Marie. That was a fantastic talk. That enhanced my vitality. And when you believe in something bigger than yourself, you can seek to be a giver and not a taker. Kind of stolen from my friend Adam Grant, who's a professor of business at Wharton in Pennsylvania, and I suggest you read his book, Give and Take. But seek to give of your time, talent, and treasure, and you know what will happen? You're going to enhance your own vitality, all right? So what are the 2 points to remember? Anybody want to give me number one? Vitality is okay. Let's say it, because if you think about it and you practice it, vitality is a skill. Okay, that's number one, and it's something you can learn. So I gave you 4 or 5 tips. There's literally thousands of things you can think about, but it's also something you can actually give yourself. And then the 4 pillars of vitality that you can work on are your physical, mental, social, and spiritual. Now, I'm going to actually leave plenty of time for a little Q&A. And if I don't get any questions, I'm going to ask questions, okay? Because one of the things I thought of with my extra 5 minutes was to do what I call a vitality intervention, okay? And we'll talk about that if we get there. But I would like to leave you with my final 3rd point to consider. And this is something that has secular and biblical surroundings. In the secular, if you think of somebody who's changing our world, or at least how we think about it right now, Elon Musk has a great line. If something is important enough, even if the odds are against you, you should still do it. So lots and lots of things don't get even started because we don't think we can finish it, or the odds are way against us. I turn that around a little bit to be a little simpler because I'm a simpler person, and I say choose the impossible mission. Okay, so if there's something so hard that it is deemed to be impossible, you're going to have a partner with you if you choose to do that. And then that leads me to my final suggestion, is that your partner who will be with you when you choose that impossible mission is God. So this is my favorite verse. What is impossible with man is possible with God. 1 Peter 5:7. So with that, I'm going to conclude with, I think, exactly 5 minutes for Q&A. and hope you all live in the vitality zone as much as possible and have a fabulous life before you flatline. Thank you.
We, mass media, media empowering community.